Hello everyone, in this video we're going to discuss miracles. So, one of the biggest miracles ever conducted was the parting of the sea during the Exodus. So I'm just going to explain scientifically how this was achieved. So what happened was we didn't part the sea. What we did instead was we had a wormhole at the beach. Moses and his people and myself walked through the wormhole, and the wormhole exit point was inside another dimension which looked very similar to that area, with the exception that it didn't go that deep underwater and in height, and the ground that they had to cover was flat. It only went for 4 kilometers, so they only had to travel 4 kilometers. And then when they reached the 4-kilometer mark, there was a wormhole entry point. They went back into this universe and was in fact on the beach on the other side. So what happened was the dimension that they went into looked similar to this one. It had an easy gradient lined with sand and small stones, and then it went through to the center, and in the middle there was sand lined the floor that was quite deep, but it wasn't difficult for Moses and his people to cross. And then what we used was angel vision to show the special effect of the seas parting. So Moses and his people saw the sea part, but it was angel vision. And then we had to use the Holy Spirit to give them confidence to go through the parting of the sea, and to move quickly, not to move slowly. There was 500,000 people there, and they had to move pretty quickly because the Egyptian army was very close. We did a lot of delaying tactics to hold the Egyptians up, including voices in the darkness to trick them into going into different directions. And then when we were happy that that Moses and his people were safely across, then we let the Egyptian army go into there. So inside that dimension was angel vision to show that the sea had been parted and that there's a wall of water on each side. When Moses and his people emerged at the other side, they were all dry. And they simply made their way to the beach. The Egyptian army, when they went in through the wormhole, they wound up going into the same location that Moses and his people had. But when they got to the center, the sand was quite deep for their chariots, and they got bogged down. To make matters worse, I closed off the wormholes at each dimension, at each end of that dimension, so there was just them and me there. I was above them on a platform, but the platform was hidden from them with angel vision. So it looked like to them like I was standing on, would have looked like I was standing on a glass floor. And I looked down at them and heckled them. And the reason why they got drowned was because it was their sword. So they'd been drowning Hebrew children, men and women, all the time and killing them. In fact, Satan had possessed the king of Egypt at the time, and that was the other part of the problem. So we opened up wormholes into another dimension which had water, and put tiny wormholes inside the dimension where the king of Egypt and his men were. And this flooded the area slowly. They looked up at me and saw me, and I heckled them, of course, and then them and their horses all died. From there, because they're in another dimension, not this universe, the Holy Spirit had to be informed that they're going into that dimension, and then the Holy Spirit teleported their souls out and left the bodies there. Same goes for the animals that were with them. They had dogs, and they had horses and falcons. So the creatures all died and were teleported to heaven, and the Egyptian army all died, the king included, and they all wound up in the storage dimension. When they arrived in the storage dimension, everyone was angry with them. So all the Hebrew people who died up to that point were in fact in the storage dimension waiting for Jesus to die on the cross. And so when they saw the Egyptian army turn up, the archangels read out the charges against them, and everyone just heckled them. And then they complained about what had happened to them, and it complained about me, and then archangels came in and escorted them away from everyone else. Their guardian angels, in fact, did that. So in heaven, what people can do is they can view this entire thing historically through angel vision, and there's it's possible to turn off the special effects done through angel vision when watching the video, and then people can see it looks completely different. You can see Moses and his people emerge from the water dry. I mean, they're completely underwater, and then they come up the beach. So it's very interesting. After the Egyptian army had died, the Holy Spirit then teleported me to the beach, and I was with everyone else. So if you want to know who I was there, I was the angel walking next to a pillar of smoke with a flaming sword. Now the flames on the sword were angel vision, and the type of sword was a katana, which sounds unusual, but the katana was part of the tech tree for Japan. So and the sword actually comes from the first history, was when we came up with the katana. There's a science behind the construction of a katana. Involves folding steel and two types of steel being used. So that's how that happened. And the pillar of smoke next to me was angel vision. So it's wormholing particles of light in front of the eyes. It's a bit tricky to explain, but just think of holographic image when you look at it. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.